We are Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Hey, welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I want to tell you to hit up our social sites, retweet, share, comment, like, do all of that stuff. It can only help us out and it'll make the show even better. But we're getting ready to give you a lot of good Ole Miss information, and I just thought I would tell you that because the POMcast is starting. Well, it's starting right now. Wait, no, that's a little early. It is starting right about now. All right, welcome to the POMcast on this Monday morning. Ole Miss had an exciting 52-51 victor over Arkansas Saturday. Really excited about that. Before we get started, we've got a jam-packed show today. I want to tell you about Travel and Cruise World. That's 1-800-330-7461. Again, that is 1-800-330-7461. This is what I was thinking. Everybody needs a little bit of a break. Everybody needs a vacation. We're 18 months into this at this point. So you can call these guys. They can get you the same price you can online, but they can provide a resource and tell you what's open so your vacation can be as good as possible. So give them a call at 1-800-330-7461. That's travelandcruiseworld.com. See Central Florida like a local. I also want to tell you about Take It to the Grove. www.bookatailgate.com. Again, that is www.bookatailgate.com. These guys do a fantastic job. They can store your tailgating stuff for you. They can rent you what you need. They can put a TV in your tent. They can even rent you another tent if you have more people coming than you were expecting. And they can even pick up your catering. So give them a look at www.bookatailgate.com. That's Take It to the Grove, 662-701-1177. That's 1177, the last four there. Also want to tell you about La Terrain Watches. Pretty fired up about that. Go to pick out a watch, inexpensive. Look at it when you check out. Use promo code POMcast, POMcast, and they can hook you up with 10% off immediately. You can see below the podcast that we are on, and if you want to catch the video version of the show, you can catch us on Twitter at the Stephen Willis or at Ole Positively. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast. You can catch us on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Subscribe, hit the bell. You'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. And of course, you can catch us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss. All one word, all lowercase. So, yeah, we got through that quicker than we normally do. I'm pretty excited about that. Hello, Guy. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm really excited about this game. And this is one of those games that Ole Miss has traditionally found a way to drop. Now, well, it just feels like something that we, like last year in Kentucky, we won on a weird play. We've won on weird plays before. It feels like in these close games, though, we're constantly paying for the immaculate deflection. But we were able to get the win here. Now, everybody's going to talk about the defense, and I'm going to talk about the defense here in a little bit. But the thing to remember is the defense made a play on the play that it had to make a play, and Ole Miss ended up winning the game. So the defense ended up actually winning the game for Ole Miss because of that two-point conversion play. There was pressure on the quarterback. All the receivers are covered. There was no place to go. It wasn't a situation where Arkansas just didn't execute. It was a situation where Ole Miss did. Period. But Matt Corral played a great game. Snoop Connor played a great game. Now, there's going to be a lot of reactionary stuff. You see that from binary media all the time, talking about what should happen after the fact. After the Alabama game, they were talking about how we had an offensive line problem and we had a wide receiver problem and Matt Corral was trying to carry everybody, and that just wasn't the case. Now, you're already starting to see the narrative pop up that we're only good because of Matt Corral and next year we're going to drop down to the pack. I hate to break it to everybody, but that's not true either. Matt Corral's a great player. The team will play differently next year. Remember, against Arkansas, that was the same offense on both teams, running the same stuff. Same defense on both teams, running the same stuff. Arkansas knew exactly what to do to put us in trouble. Now, we're trying to play defense at the moment without Jake Springer, who is our best box safety. He is the one that makes – we're running a 3-2-6, but whenever he's in the game, it's like a 3-3-5 because he is such a hybrid linebacker and is such a box player. He hasn't played since Louisville. We've been treading water since Louisville. Understand that. Whenever he comes back, there's going to be a lot of problems solved on that defense. Period. Now, he might not come back. And, they don't talk about injuries. But whenever he comes back, the defense will look different. Now, on the other side is Tysheem Johnson, who's a great player. He's going to be solid. He's unbelievable. He's not flashing real player. He's kind of just flashing solid at this point. But as a true freshman, that's pretty much where you need to be 5 games into your college career. He's going to improve. He's going to find a home on that side of the ball. And in doing so, he's going to be able to, dictate and grow. And whenever that happens, when you have those 2 box safeties on the outside, those plays off tackle become more difficult to run. Now, if you look at our offense, these are the same plays that we were running against them. Schematically, that is the weakness of the defense. Every defense has a weakness, by the way. This isn't something new to this style of defense. This isn't anything like that. Every defense has a weakness. Now, how you mask those weaknesses is how you move forward. Now, what is Ole Miss going to do? I think Ole Miss is probably going to have to they're not going to be able to move the defensive line because the defensive line essentially pinches every play to route people. They can bounce off, and if they block the box safety, it's a problem. Now, if they're playing too far off the ball, they might be able to fix it a little bit with alignment. They might be able to fix it a little bit with alignment and sending players on blitz. That's probably the risk that we have to take. What's going on? I realize this drop 8 defense is going to cause a lot of problems, but we're going to have to create holes zone blitzing. And count on the fact that these quarterbacks aren't good enough to find the hole where it's coming from. Maybe your zone shifts over by 5 to 10 feet if one of the outside box safeties are blitzing or something like that. That could be an idea to make it work, and there's also a way you can disguise what you're doing a little bit. And that's again, alignment. We need to bring people up on the line of scrimmage. They can go back to drop 8. They can come after the quarterback. That is the next step in the evolution of this defense. This was not a finished product against Louisville. This was not a finished product Saturday against Arkansas. It's not going to be a finished product against Mississippi State. Now, whenever you decide that something works, schematically something works, and you want to do it, it's a process. You have to commit to it. And there's going to be like, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? Yeah, there's going to be growing pains. This whole process. We were like dead last in defense last year. We're not dead last this year. It's an incremental improvement, and that is just based off the scheme. So you take that and you start recruiting for it. You see all these tweeners that they're popping up, those 3-star safeties and defensive backs that they're signing recently. Those are those box safety type players. And they're going to essentially grow into outside linebackers. So you're going to have 220-pound safeties patrolling the line of scrimmage that's really a DB, but big enough to handle the physicality of the run game as a linebacker. That is what we're looking at defensively. We're recruiting there, and you can see the people in the frame that can do it, and they're a little bit tweeners. They don't really fit at outside backer. They don't really fit at safety, but in between, they're kind of exactly what you need. So that is what we're doing. We're recruiting our way out of this problem. We're not going to ditch a system. And if you start throwing stuff into the system, you're going to overload the kids. They only have 20 hours a week. And then the fourth quarter of the game is going to look like the fourth quarter of the game. What happened in the fourth quarter of that game, and this happened on both sides. Arkansas at that point was a top 10 defense that we did to this the same thing too. We were not a top 10 defense, but they did the same thing to us because they know our weak points. They go against it every day. They see it. They know what gives them trouble. So, like I said, if you add stuff to it, they don't have time to pick it up. If you commit to this, what they're doing, you're going to have to recruit to it. You still have personnel that's just messed up over the last 5 years, starting with Wesley McGriff, Mike McIntyre, and going into DJ Durkin. 3 straight systems. They're different type players, all in the same place. You got to recruit your way out of it. And they're doing that by recruiting all kinds of defensive backs and things like that. That's going to help. The future is okay. People are going to say 3-2-6. And everybody's going to look at all of that stuff. But a defense is essentially an over and under a defense, whether you're 3 down or 4 down. Now, we need to probably work on our alignment. They're trying to start them off in that drop 8 position where they're back, so their eyes are always on the quarterback. You don't want a situation where your eyes aren't on the quarterback. But it's in position to where there's 2 teams that were terrible matchups, and that was Arkansas and Alabama. Those are done, and we went 1-1 with a loss at Tuscaloosa. Now, I am going to root next week for Mississippi State because we need Alabama to lose one more game, and we need them to lose one more game. I feel fairly good against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. I'm not necessarily worried about that game, not any more than any other game. So I am rooting for them to get the loss because we need Alabama to get the loss. As long as we're holding serve, we need them to get the loss. So I'm going to root for Mississippi State Saturday to do that. Now, moving to Tennessee, we're going to break into this next week. They looked really good in the first quarter against South Carolina. The first quarter against Tennessee the last 2 weeks, I think they've scored 70 points or something like that. 60 points. Who knows? Like 35 and 28 points. It was right there on the cusp. I think 63, I think that is the math there. So that's the Simpson County math. So you need to come out quick. You need to come out on fire. You need to come out confident. Now, this staff, Lane Kiffin and what he does, his magic sauce is confidence. He makes his teams confident. Now, there's going to be people that are so reactionary and so binary with covering the team that you will see takes about the defense being absolute garbage and we need to do this and we need to do that and we need to do that. Ignore it. It's not the case. There's no chance to make a change now anyway. And all this does is affect the confidence of the players moving forward. Because people that don't really understand what's happening and not in the room are trying to make snap opinions on what's happening. Now, Arkansas ran the ball on Ole Miss. Ole Miss ran the ball on Arkansas. Alabama ran the ball on Ole Miss. Alabama had like 450 total yards and 42 points. It's going to be okay. I really wish we would have had Jake Springer in that game. I think that Alabama game would have looked a whole lot different with Jake Springer playing in that game. I don't think people realize how good of a player Jake Springer is and how important he is for this defense. Lane Kiffin actually mentioned him by name in the post-game press conference, talking about as him being a catalyst for this defense. Keydron Smith has played well. He's done his best. He's absolutely done his best. How you doing, Lynn? I see you there. Thank you very much for watching. But he is not Jake Springer. And on the other side is a true freshman who's never seen it, who's just kind of getting his feet wet. You can see why the tackles would be the weak spot. Now, against Tennessee, it's going to be interesting. Tennessee is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more like playing us, really, instead of playing a running version of the wishbone that is us. Again, same system. Arkansas and Ole Miss run the same stuff. How they run it and what they run it is all depending on the talent and personnel they have. That's the reason I'm not overly worried about Matt Corral moving on and getting drafted, because the offense will adjust. We have players everywhere. We're going to be fine offensively. And most any quarterback is going to be able to hit Dontario Drummond and Braylon Sanders that wide open. So I'm not overly worried about it. I'm not overly worried about the wide receiver. What we do things a little different than the rest of college football. So if everybody has talking points for what they think football should look like, and since we don't look like that, there obviously must be a problem. They just don't understand. They don't understand what's going on. They've dealt with cliches over and over and over again to the point where they think that's the only way to do things, and we do things in a different way. We don't substitute. It's not because of lack of depth. It's because of pro tempo. I mean, it's the main thing. Like, people will say, we have an offensive line problem. We need to go 8 or 9 deep. Okay, so says who? If they can play the full game, if they can play 15 minutes of football, let's not forget that's what it is as far as actual game time, not standing around and what's going on. It's like 15 minutes a game. It's a brutal game and it's a tough game, but you can do that. And on the wide receiver side, people are talking the same thing. It's like, oh, they're only playing these guys. There must be a depth problem. There must be a problem. If they're doing this, there has to be an issue. That's not true. It's not true at all. That's an assumption, but it's not true, as you saw this weekend. Also, by the way, I want everybody to notice, nobody's talking about this. Dontario Drummond got moved out wide last week. We mentioned that on this podcast last week, moving Dontario out wide. That opened up for Ja'Cour Pearson and John Rice Plumlee to have a role in the game, and it was their best game. So the offense is going to start to look a little different without Mingo, but having Drummond on the outside. They're going to move Drummond around because he's still a weapon at 225 pounds or whatever he is. He's absolutely a weapon. But they found a way to get John Rice on the field. And that is pretty impressive. I didn't notice the outside receivers, what's going on there. So other than Dontario Drummond going out to the outside and playing some outside receiver, I'm a little bit at a loss. They also are starting to use the tight end a little bit more, starting to look a little bit like last year's offense a bit. And I think there's a situation where that's going to pop up as well against Tennessee. The tight end and the slot receiver playing in the middle of the field, because they have a depth issue. So it's important to go tempo and get a lot of plays off. They're going to work the middle of the field. They need to play clean. Now we're going into Tennessee, Tennessee is going to sell that place out. They are jazzed. It is going to be a huge game. Ole Miss comes into that game. They're number 13 or number 14 in the country. It's time to get a win in Neyland Stadium. I think this would be the first time getting a win in Neyland Stadium since 1983 or something like that. Somebody in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 83, and that was Jamie Holder and Kelly Powell and those guys. So it's important to play very clean moving into Saturday. But I'm excited. I'm not overly concerned about the defense. The defense is a process. We talked all season, all off season, that we were hoping this defense was around 80th in the country. We hoped this defense was around 90th. Yeah, you're going to have good games. You're going to have bad games. That's the thing. The middle is more the truth. So I'm not overly worried about it. It was a process. It was always going to be a process stepping into this, and they do look better. They genuinely do look better. Now, whenever you play against a team with a running quarterback that does wishbone type stuff, lots of options in different places, it can be very difficult. It can be very difficult. They put you in conflict all the time. And they know what we struggle with. So, yeah, I'm excited about Arkansas. They've ran the ball fairly effectively this year. KJ Jefferson played a heck of a game. Respect to that kid. Also, our favorite triple option showed up. Finally showed up. It was in the Ole Miss Arkansas game. They started running that about the time they figured out what they needed to do to attack the defense, and they just started the avalanche against that Arkansas defense, which, again, coming into that game was a top 10 defense. Number 2 pass defense in the country. And, yeah, they just got decimated. Over 600 yards, 52 points. This is a bad day right now in Fayetteville. Today is a get well day in Fayetteville. All of the stuff that people are worried about what's going on, I think that's a little bit of a reaction. Arkansas is actually going through that because they gave up 52 points and took the L. Ole Miss is in the catbird seat for the Sugar Bowl. Arkansas all of a sudden has 2 conference losses and Auburn's coming to town. If they drop that game, it could snowball pretty quick for Arkansas. Good team, but it could snowball pretty quick. Same thing for Arkansas or Auburn. If Auburn drops that game, it could snowball fairly quick. You beat LSU and now you lost to Georgia. That's expected. You lose to Arkansas. It's like, whoa. Because Fayetteville for Ole Miss, we all know, is a little bit of a house of horrors. So, we'll get into the betting lines real quick. We're just going to blow through the break right now. There we go. If you look at it, South Carolina is favored by 20 over Vandy. There's a few high school teams that might be favored over Vandy at this point. It opened at -16. Not really going to talk about that. Texas A&M is favored by 9 at Mizzou. It opened at 10. The line's going the other way. This is one of those games, if it was anybody but Mizzou, I would say just count on A&M to not play very well. And I'm kind of counting on them to not play very well anyway. But with A-Chain and Isaiah Spiller running the ball, there is a safety net for the Texas A&M Aggies. But the Aggies are 9-point favorites. Alabama gets, Alabama is a 17.5-point favorite over Mississippi State in Starkville. Line opened at 21. It's moved almost 4 points. It's a game we need Alabama to take that one more loss. Also, if they take that one more loss, the chance of a 3-way tie definitely comes into play again. So we need Alabama to lose another game, and it gives us margin for error moving forward. So if there could be a situation like, well, if you beat A&M, that's 3 losses for them, but you know what I mean. Georgia is a 22.5-point favorite over Kentucky and opened up at 24 games at Georgia. Kentucky, there are people that are trying to make Liam Cohen into Joe Brady. Kentucky's offense in no way has looked like Joe Brady. I imagine he's a likable guy and is good, but Kentucky offensively looks like they did last year. Just have a better quarterback, and they've got Wan'Dale Robinson. That's kind of the change from last year, but it's working for them, especially with that defense. Yeah, and Florida is a 10-point favorite on the road in Tiger Stadium at LSU. Line opened up at -3.5. The line has moved 7 points. Folks, this thing at LSU is over. It's done. It's absolutely done. And if there's any choice, anything you can see, it's the fact that Florida's line has moved 7 points in their direction over the course of a week. Actually, over the course of one day, because the line opened yesterday. It's absolutely insane. I can't imagine the amount of money that's going on the Gators to cause that 3. Oh, that's crazy. Ole Miss is favored by 3 over Tennessee. At Tennessee, line opened up at -4. It's a good game. The over-under opened up at like 85.5 points. It's down to like 78, 79, somewhere in there. So they're expecting a high-scoring game. I think we're all expecting a high-scoring game, honestly. But it should be good. Hendon Hooker kind of has the Vols back on track after starting with Joe Milton. They kind of messed that up. Ole Miss's offense is really clicking. Tennessee has depth problems defensively. So it could be a situation where at the second half it just gets interesting. It's been getting interesting in the second half for Tennessee over the last couple of weeks. But the first quarter is the reason that game has been blown out. I mean, they scored 60 against Missouri. Missouri really struggled. They scored 38 against South Carolina. But I'm really interested to see what this goes. This is going to be rapid fire, fastball, no huddle on both sides. It's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to watching this game. I think this game is the SEC at night with Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, and Cole Kublik. But, I mean, this is one of those games that could be open over at midnight. So it should be interesting to see that. Arkansas is a 3.5-point favorite over Auburn. Arkansas opened at -3. The game is in Arkansas. It's one of those games that you just kind of you expect with Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter for them to attack the edges in this game. If Arkansas can do well against the run, they will win the game. If they repeat what happened by Ole Miss this week, they will not win the game. Simple as that. But with Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter against a run defense, if you can't stop them, they will keep doing it over and over and over again. And they will make life very difficult on you. The flip side of that is I want to see Arkansas's offense against Auburn's defense. You talk about a team that got some stuff going last week. I want to see what it looks like in Fayetteville next week. I want to see what they're capable of doing. Because, like I said, Fayetteville is kind of a house of horrors for Ole Miss. I'm sure it's a tough place to play for other people. I used to tell people all the time, it reminded me of a Jim Walter home for whatever reason, whenever I went into the press box and did all that I did. But you have that game coming up. So that is the SEC slate this week. And real quick, I do want to remind you, share the show, like it, retweet it, do all of that stuff. Evangelize it to other people. Tonight, Beast of the East tonight, we're going to hear all about Georgia sitting all along as chaos has hit college football, because the one step left to do is Alabama, if they make it to the SEC championship game, beating Georgia. Then all of a sudden chaos would absolutely reign into college football. So, yeah, tweet it, retweet it, and do all that. Please do that for us. Also, leave us a review on the podcast, 5-star. Please say whatever you want to. Just leave us a 5-star review. It will help us out greatly. And tonight, Beast of the East. Tomorrow, Best of the West. Nice Alabama perspective coming up tomorrow night. So that live stream, you can catch that. Wednesday, SEC After Dark. Me, Corey, and Jeb are going to talk about just an absolutely bonkers weekend going into college football, and Georgia and Kentucky that day with Ole Miss and Tennessee that night. There's bonkersness that could happen regardless. And Thursday, trying to set up a live stream preview with Kyler Kirbyson. If I get that done in the next couple of days, I will let you know what's going on with that. So thank you very much for tuning in for the show today. Tomorrow we are going to do a little bit of the POMcast and breaking into the game. If you listen to the show over the course of the week with all the perspectives we had, we hit the Alabama game, we hit the Arkansas game. Odds are we're going to hit the Tennessee game as well. So tune into that for all our stuffs. All of it's available on the podcast stream, YouTube. We got several channels online. We want to make the content the king. We don't want ego. It's not about me. It's about it. And I'm trying to constantly bring in more perspectives in for you because you're the most important part of this whole thing. Not me, not anybody trying to make money off of what's going on. So take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. And howdy toddy.